Why are you standing in the cold? T or T, not A, because T.
Your name? Joachim. Joachim.
I think it's right to use it.
Just do it. This is the last one.
What's your name?
What's your Michael is my brother's name. M-I-K-A-E-L. No, that's right. I respect that. Congratulations, Miss Redgrave.
C-H-E-L.
I just wanted to find the sign outside.
You've inherited the looks of your father. So let's go to this area.
Så varmt välkommen och nu är det dags för mig att kalla in Andrea Reuter som ska hålla i det här samtalet. Välkommen!
So, good evening everyone and welcome to the prize ceremony for the Stockholm Lifetime Achievement Award 2017. My name is Andrea Reuter and it's an immense pleasure and privilege to be here to honor this year's recipient, the British actress Vanessa Redgrave. She's one of the most distinguished film and stage actresses. She has more than 100 film roles to her name in films like Sidney Lumet's The Seagull, Julia, of course Mission Impossible, Blow Up, and she has won all the film awards that can be bestowed upon an actress. And she has reached our hearts and minds with her grace and talent for more than half a century. So let's take a short look at some of the roles she's immortalized throughout the years. So good evening, welcome to Stockholm and welcome to the beautiful cinema Skandia. It's a little bit dark now.
It's a little bit gloomy.
A little bit gloomy, but I promise it's very beautiful. So lovely to have you here. I don't like people starting off by apologizing, but I'm still going to apologize about the technical hiccup that we had.
Stop apologizing. One big shout. Don't apologize, Andrea. Yeah?
But
Don't apologize, Andrea.
And I would prefer not to apologize about myself or about you.
Nothing. Come on.
So we Swedes, we tend to think that everyone has some kind of relationship to Sweden. So what's yours?
Okay. I better get on with it. I can't take all this time. Well, I don't think I have a special relationship with Sweden, but I'm thrilled to be here.
And you did spend some months here shooting The Seagull with the Sidney Lumet.
Yes, I did. Sidney Lumet and I, and a fantastic cast of wonderful actors and actresses, including one of the most wonderful women actresses I've ever met, of course, yeah, Simone Signoret was a fabulous lady, and James Mason, who was playing Trigorin, the main part in The Seagull, and he fell in love with Harriet Anderson, so I've got a little bit of a connection.
So you had to start acting instead. So I had the pleasure of reading your autobiography, and in it you write about
Which version?
the one that came out in 1991.
Okay, because the American, I don't know what
On
we call
the
it,
back
edition.
side, there's like on the back cover, there's a picture of you like this.
I'm dancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very nice picture.
But the American edition was better still because Annie Leibovitz took a photograph of me in front of the cliffs of Dover.
Oh, Leibovitz, wow.
And that was a better, because the American editors are better than English editors, or were at that time.
This is the one I found, but I guess maybe the things inside are the same one.
No.
No? Not even that? So I'm going to quote from the British edition.
Okay.
So you write about your father Michael that he was called an intellectual actor, and now I have to read here and quote you. I never saw any actor who possessed such capacity for emotion and the appropriate form of that emotion. So I wanted to know what you learned about acting from your parents and from that great generation.
Well, from my parents is one thing, the generation is another.
Then you can divide the answer into two parts.
Yes, I can. You're a very clever lady. I'm very lucky. Okay. So, So can you put the question again?
So let's start with what you learned from your parents about acting.
Discipline.
And that means, if you want to specify.
Yes, you're quite right to ask that. It means, I'm not necessarily putting it in the right order. It means being on time, always earlier than the time you're called. It means think and be considerate of your fellow actors and actresses, and of your stage management, on whom the entire production, if we're talking about theatre, I presume you are, at the moment anyway. It means hours of work. It means taking voice classes, singing classes, dance classes, in my case, ballet classes, and being prepared to work and work and work and work to get something right. And so that's what they taught me. Later, when I got married, I met, before I got married, Tony Richardson, and he and a whole group of film directors, Carlo Rice, Czech refugee, a great Carlo Rice, Czech refugee, a great Fred Zinnemann, Austrian refugee. I won't go on, but
we get the point.
But this group of directors were new cinema, new wave cinema, and they believed that perfection is not the aim. Would you like to translate, or does everybody understand?
Everyone understands English.
And I think what it meant was that the perfection of the previous era of cinema was not the aim. And very relieved I was to hear it, because I did a film in the previous era. They patted my brow. They made my lips, which you can see my lips are tiny. They're very thin, right? So they painted a big mouth to make my mouth look pretty, as they thought. And because I was supposed to be a good girl in this character, they put my hair in a very tight chignon so that I looked good. I'm not going to fall in love easily, and I'm going to have to marry you. So that was the confines, if you were a woman, of the old cinema.
And how was
It was more fun to play bad women, but I never got a chance because I didn't have any boobs. You had to have boobs if you were going to play bad women. Okay. That's the old cinema. I knew that old cinema. Can you imagine?
But then you got the chance to play, for example, in Mission Impossible. You weren't a good woman, you were more of a...
Well, that's years later.
Yeah. So I'm happy we're in the time of new cinema. So I wanted to ask you, maybe...
Well, now Mission Impossible is old cinema.
Oh yeah, it's 96. So that's actually... it's your career is so incredibly impressive and long. So this might be the same answer as you said about learning from the older generation, but I still want to ask you, because both your daughters, Jolie and the late Natasha, and your granddaughter, your niece, all these women coming after you, they also became actresses. So what kind of advice did you give them when they started out?
Any advice? Why do you think I gave them advice?
Because I thought maybe, I don't know, they asked for it or... No, they wanted none of that.
Well, you know, once in a blue moon, they gave me advice.
And of course you did a lot of plays and films together as well. But
Well,
what
not
if,
a lot.
considering,
It's nice,
let's-
we did do a few.
I mean, I do like being on the stage, but I'm no actress. But let's pretend that
Are you an actress?
No.
I didn't think so.
I am only good at acting
I was surprised
myself.
when you said I'm an actress.
No, I'm no actress. But
You're no
let's,
actress.
let's pretend I'm an actress.
Never mind, it doesn't matter.
And I come to you and I ask you for advice. What kind of advice would you give for a younger actress?
Well, I wouldn't.
Why? I mean, with all of your
Come on,
experience.
darling heart, get serious. You don't start dishing out advice as if you were giving a sandwich at lunchtime.
Okay. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, you've done more than 100 roles on film.
That's quite a lot.
I think it was 134 when I looked on IMDb. So
Gosh, I'm going to shrivel.
pretty impressive. And one of the first big roles that you did and that people really remember you for was in Michelangelo Antonioni's Blow Up.
Oh, yeah.
So could you tell us about working with him and what you learned from that film?
Well, it was great because it was my first and last chance to work with a cinema director whose entire obsession was with movement, with spaces, with, in other words, the kinetics, and with color and sound, and didn't care at all about the text.
That's something else than all the Shakespeare you've been doing on
No,
stage.
don't
for
compare to
sure.
Shakespeare, we're talking about film.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a different aesthetics. So I thought, who are some of the others directors that you've worked with on film that have influenced you? Do you have some favorite ones from your career?
Sorry, would you say that again?
Do you have any other big directors that well, they don't have to be big, it could be anyone, but that you've worked with on film that have influenced you?
Yes, I worked with Carlo Nero, the producer of my film, which you'll see here tonight, See Sorrow. I began acting when I was 4. I've got a lifetime achievement here, which is wonderful. I'm thrilled about. And now I'm 80, and I'm in the film you're going to see tonight, See Sorrow. And I've worked with Carlo in a film we did for HBO Films. which he co-wrote with a wonderful American writer theatre American writer, but he's also a brilliant actor, Wallace Shawn. Some of you may know his work. And that was called The Fever. And I was very influenced by Carlo's approach, both as a director, but also as co-writer with Wallace Shawn. It was a big experience. Thanks for asking about that.
So, you will soon receive the award.
How soon?
Quite soon.
I'm getting tense with expectation.
And now I'm almost afraid to announce this because I hope that the technician has got it together, because we have a small greeting for
But
you.
we don't want it, it's going to break down.
Let's try our luck once more.
Do you mean the same thing that broke down before? Well, let's scrub it, we've moved on, it's okay.
No, but this is something that both you
No,
and the
don't let
audience
it
want
get so
to
loud.
see. Will it work?
Please say no.
What is he saying? Yes! Come on, put it on.
Vanessa, it's your old pal Jane, and I'm so proud of you. I send you my congratulations for winning this wonderful Lifetime Achievement Award from the Stockholm Film Festival. I wish I could be there, but I send you so much love. You so deserve this. You are the absolute best in every way.
So that was, of course, the actress Jane Fonda, and she only said Jane. I had to tell everyone, but I think, of course, everyone knows her. And you've known her for a really long time. Could you tell us how you got to know each other? Because it was before you made Julia together, right?
Yes, we met, I was in Malibu with my husband, Tony Richardson. He was filming The Loved One, which is one of the most brilliant films I've ever seen, black and white. This was around about 1970, 71. And so I was pregnant with my second girl. Oh no, she was born in 69. So let's go back a bit. It was 68, 67, 68. And and Jane was working with the GIs against the Vietnam War. And so that's how we first met. And I asked her to tell me about the GI coffee houses, which were the big deal for the peace movement in those days. And when I got back to England, I started up working with the GIs in England.
And she actually named her daughter after you.
She did.
Right, yeah. And I think it's, I was so happy when I found out that.
The message.
Yeah, isn't it? And I think there's so many parallels between you. You are still working, you come from families with actors, you've been so active with human rights issues throughout your life, so you're kind of like a British and an American version of the same kind of wonderful actress and activist for me, so I was very happy to hear that she sent a greeting.
It's a lovely greeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now
lovely.
it's happening, Vanessa. You are getting the bronze.
Well, stand up.
I will. And I have to give you a small warning. This is one of the world's heaviest, and I mean literally heaviest prizes.
It can't be, because
So
the
it's-
first prize I got was the Cannes Film Award for Best Actress, and I dropped it.
Okay, let's see how it goes. I hope it's gonna go well. So I'm actually gonna ask. We're gonna change
It's a
places.
traffic jam.
Yeah. Maybe you can drape it on the horse.
I'm going to come over here, so then Git's got... Git, it's funny.
So I'm gonna move aside, and I'm gonna leave the word to the festival director to
to
change.
come by you.
Oh,
It's a little horse. Sweet. I thought you were going to give me that one.
Take that with you. Take both, please. Vanessa Redgrave, it's an honor for us to have you here tonight, and we want, this is the motivation. So this year's winner of the Stockholm Lifetime Achievement Award has been one of the most prominent actors in the world for over 5 decades, and has been named the greatest living actress of our time by...
No, not at all. No, really not. No, there's a lot of wonderful actresses around.
Yeah.
And they're not all English or American either. There happens to be a lot of fantastic Japanese actresses, European actresses, come on, Australian actresses.
But now it's about you. So she is as brilliant in custom dramas as in political documentaries.
Political documentary.
As she has worked in some of the greatest auteurs in cinematic history, with an astonished force and a great social commitment. Vanessa Redgrave is an icon with a cause, and we would like to thank you so very much for this. Thank you very much, Vanessa Redgrave.
Thank you. Which is it?
I don't know. It's a unicorn. I don't see anything.
Okay. All right. Well, that's lovely. But are you going to ship it back to London? Please.
Let us do that, please.
We can't carry this through Swedish customs or Heathrow. We really can't. But he's lovely. If ever a burglar comes to break into my flat, I can take him. Obviously, you have saved me. Oh, what a darling he is. Thank you so much. Well, now, can you read this word out for me? You say all these lovely things about me, but this is what I think I am.
Sköldpadda.
Thank you. Yes, that's a wonderful word, isn't it? Sköldpadda. Can you shine a light on that?
Yes, could we have a light on that? A little bit more?
You see, I did worry for a little while that you were going to bring me back. Because I will lose all my breath in time.
I can carry it. I can also carry your scarf.
Yeah.
Or do you will,
We want to shake it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really, I'm very impressed.
Yes.
You're dressed very appropriately.
I should have some kind of workout
Thank you,
clothes
yes.
on me.
Thank you, Vanessa. And yeah.
For years I had nightmares about fire approaching from far away and coming nearer and nearer and nearer.
What confidence can be placed in the suggestion that large-scale help will be given to the suffering people who are being driven out of Central Europe? May we not plead for somewhat more humanity in dealing with these cases?
They used water cannon and tear gas to move part of the jungle. The National Front are very strong in Calais, and the French government and the Mayor of Calais have to show how tough they are with these people. Well, my feeling is if you concede to the fascists will always win. You've got to stand up against them.
They hurried us aboard a bark, bore us some leagues to sea, where they prepared a rotten carcass of a boat, not rigged, nor tackle, sail, nor masts. The very rats instinctively had quitted. There they hoist us.
How came we ashore?
By providence divine.
I haven't yet. So first of all, thank you for a deeply touching film. I wanted to start off by asking both of you why you wanted to make this film.
We could say a lot of things. I could say to help the work of UNHCR, because that's why all of us, that's included in the reason that all of us work for the refugees. In fact, we had a wonderful thing happen actually.
Tell us about the wonderful thing.
Well, the Carlotta Sami, you know, we've just been at the Rome Festival. She came to see the film. She's head spokesman for UNHCR. They don't have CEOs, and they like to say spokesmen for Southern Europe. Well, Europe, apparently Rome is included in Southern Europe. And she says that she wants UNHCR to sponsor.
Well, officially endorse the film.
Officially endorse the film,
Okay,
which is great, isn't it?
Entail? Do you know more what that means?
Well, it means it's official, so we can put the logo up and they can obviously support it and promote it as much as possible in all the various territories in which they operate and in every country. So that's a great endorsement. You know, it's an honour to be endorsed by such an extraordinary organisation that works tirelessly every day of the year, nearly 24/7, to help displaced people, refugees all over the world.
And not give them the money that they need.
Yeah.
So it says a lot about our world, doesn't it?
For sure.
Yeah.
And not many good things, unfortunately.
But anyway, sorry, I segued away because you said what made you want to.
Yeah, but I think that was crucial information, and
I
I'm
think
so
it
happy
was.
to hear about it. But maybe you want to say something about why you decided to make this film, Carla.
Well, really, I think Vanessa should start. I mean, she wanted to make the film like she wanted to breathe. You know, she couldn't go another day living without trying to make this film. So to say it's a labour of love or, you know, passion project is almost an understatement. It's a life project,
Yeah.
a survival project
Yeah.
to sustain her. So that really was what it was. But what I wanted to do, because really it started out with very, very modest ambitions, very, very humble ambitions, and then it just sort of grew. But I became involved because I thought I could add something that perhaps even she as director, and in terms of fulfilling her vision for the piece, I could bring something personal to it, and I think I did in encouraging her to bring the personal stories of being a displaced child, a refugee in her own country, an evacuee, as she was during the Second World War, which she hadn't really wanted to do. She wanted actually to have as little about her as possible. But I thought,
I resisted.
It's such a personal film anyway. You have to, and it's relevant. It's not unrelated to the stories we hear about in the film and are discussed in the film. You have to bring that personal dimension to the film, because actually people will connect with it more. And I think people have all over the world where they've seen it so far, have connected with that because they say, right, I see. And yes, and of course the Second World War, and yes, of course, Lord Alf Dubs, a Kindertransport child fleeing the Nazis. You know, this is all relevant, this is all connected to today. There are parallels, there are echoes, very much. Some things are different, but in essence, fundamentally, they're very much the same. So, you know, all of this was really, really important for the film, and in developing it. There was no script, you know, literally it was a case of element by element, building this extraordinary sort of edifice, and week by week, and it took a lot of time, but the one good thing about it taking a lot of time and stopping and for a while and meditating on what you've done, then resuming, is that it really does allow you to make very deep choices, not rushed choices. You know, you can think about it. Sometimes you do have to make rushed choices, you know, but over the whole arc of the project, you actually are able to really think, you know, and that's really, really important. But sorry, Vanessa, you should speak more. It's your film.
So I wanted to ask about the text from Shakespeare's The Tempest, and it's so finely acted by Ray Fiennes and Daisy Bevan, who is your granddaughter.
Get that scene played more finely
No.
than those two, Rafe and Daisy.
And I wonder what made you think of that particular text in regards to
Isn't
this
that
current
kind of
situation?
obvious?
It is, but still making that connection maybe isn't that obvious for everyone. How did you choose to have that in the film?
Well, because I know the text very well. Otherwise, as you say, if I didn't know the text. But I've played Prospero myself in the theatre. And it's, didn't play it very well, but I loved playing him, her. A bit too late, I discovered that my director was a wonderful lady called Lenka Udovitsky. A bit too late, I discovered that she really wanted me to play Prospero as a woman. But no, I did not want to play Prospero as a woman. I had an idée fixe, which was that I was going to play Prospero as a man, and I got the absurd idea that Mark Rylance, who was still artistic director of the Globe at that time, I thought he'd asked me to play Prospero, because he did ask me to play Prospero. I thought he'd asked me to play Prospero because he knew I was very good at playing men. But that's not why he did. He asked me because he knew I had an affinity for the whole history of refugees, and was involved and had worked in Kosovo and in Sarajevo and so on and so forth. It was not because I could play men, and I can play men.
So let's open up for some questions from
Yes, I'm
the
longing
audience,
to
and I think we need
questions.
some light to be able
Could
to
we
see.
have some light?
Okay, so there is a hand
I'm Pakistani American. But
Qureshi. Okay, forgive me, thank you.
But I do have a question about Palestine as an issue, about your Oscar acceptance speech. Did anyone in Hollywood offer their support when you spoke out on behalf of the Palestinian people?
Well, you've missed a bit of history. Because more important than Hollywood offering support, when I was blacklisted by the Boston Symphony Orchestra and set up to take my case to court in the United States, my union, American Actors Equity, took up in support of my case. Now that's when we get to the nitty-gritty of things. And I asked, so many people came forward with envelopes stuffed with dollars. And I would say to people, why are you supporting my case? This was when we got to Boston, and at last we were going to get into court, because it took 2.5 years or so before I could get to the court, because of all the rules of litigation in the United States. But my union, American Actors Equity, were brilliant, because it's the issue of blacklisting. And you know, a union is the same on a working level, or in the working milieu, for all people, trades or professions or crafts. It's the same as the Declaration of Human Rights. It's not a question of your politics. You stand by each other on a question of principle and human rights, which belong to everybody. Right, left, centre, top, down, middle, you name it, whatever your nation. And that's what I thought was absolutely terrific. I'll never let anyone forget that, and I'll never myself forget that. And things have come, when you build on that, in other words, you build on basic principles with friends, fellow workers, colleagues. When you build on the same rights applying to everybody, you can build and build and build and build. Meaning, you can build solidarity, that great element in life, solidarity. Thank you for your question.
We have a question here in the front and one over there. You'll get to turn soon. Please go ahead.
I have a question about, in the beginning of the documentary, you started with the heavy... In the beginning of the documentary, you started with heavy rain, and when the scenes change, you use this some sort of sound and that, the golden foil kind of thing, like that. And then the end of the documentary, there's a portrait of a lady who's holding a baby with the same color of that golden aluminum foil, which is like, some sort of sail, or it's kind of...
It's a thermal blanket.
Yeah, survival blanket like that. And it relates to whole colors starting from the documentary and it comes to the end. I just want to know how that idea came to put that things in between the scenes and connect that at the end. Do you understand what my question is?
I think so. Well, Carlo will say something.
Thank you. That's no one's ever asked that question.
No one's ever asked that. Yeah. Ever. It's like no one's ever asked why we don't have music. Don't worry. Well, because those thermal blankets are lifesavers, so the thread of saving life, saving life, saving life, saving life came to my mind as being a means of, and I'm going to say something that I may not be able to explain, but I studied Italian and took exams in Italian. And one of the great old Italian poets, Dante Alighieri, wrote a huge long poem. It begins with hell, goes to purgatory, and then it goes to paradiso. And it's written in what in the older days were called cantos, which canto means song in Italian, but of course that's not the reference. And I'm not able to tell you the reference, but I felt like these were episodes, but they were like cantos, not scenes, cantos, each a little story, is how I try and put it. I mean, that's the philosophical reason. And the colours are another question. You say what you think, Connor.
Well, exactly what Vanessa said regarding the use interspersed throughout the film, but we tying it in to the final image of the lady with the baby, and the crook of her arms, almost a Madonna and child image, if you will. Was I guess ultimately, because actually we had a different image in an earlier version of the film. Yeah. Well, it was actually of children. It was a sort of still image of the children that we see, the refugees in Lebanon in the camp there. But we decided on that really to tie this whole idea up of the foil, the thermal blanket throughout the film, and then also I guess as well. And someone did point this one out in a festival, in a Q&A was in the past, was tying it in with the Madonna and child we see at the beginning in the orphanage that accepts refugees in the beginning, and sort of, should we say, the prologue to the film with the Afghan young man and the two Guinean boys. So in the end, that seemed like the right image. We had, it's just funny because we had that image, we had the rights to that image, but we interestingly paid all this money to use the image, and then we weren't going to use it, and then finally, this is where it has to be put, and it was like a light bulb moment, eureka, this is where it goes in it. So it all made sense. It all made sense, yeah.
We had a question here in the front, maybe one of the mics could come over here. No, don't give yours away. Okay, we'll use that one. Okay.
I'm holding Vanessa Redgrave's microphone. My name is Jan Hammarlund. I would just... Jan Hammarlund, Swedish. This is a detail, of course, but I was so thrilled by the reference to that wonderful woman and activist, Sylvia Pankhurst, who apparently wrote the letter that Emma Thompson read. How did that come about?
Thank you.
I came across a reference to that letter many years ago. I'm always going to old bookshops, and these days I've got a friend, he's a mutual friend, who's a fantastic person to get in touch with if you want a book. Anyway, I got, I think this was more sort of an accident actually, an old, the old Penguin books for book lovers. You will certainly know the old Penguin books. Well, there's also the old Pelican books. And one of the old Pelican books, about, of course, the 1930s, and the work for and against refugees. And it referred to a letter and quoted a small extract from it. And I'd never forgotten that. It's one of those things you tuck away and remember. And so when we were coming to think about when I was thinking and checking in with Carlo about my thoughts. I remembered this, and I asked my agents, as a young lad working at my agents, called Marvin, and I said, Marvin, will you contact The Guardian? Because now it's called The Guardian. Those days it was called the Manchester Guardian, and it was published in Manchester. Anyway, I said, will you get in touch with The Guardian and see if they've got a back copy? And he did, and they had got a back copy, and we bought it. And that's how we found the full length. It was printed and published on November the 22nd, a few days after Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht, for reference for everybody, was the terrifying night when the Nazis throughout Germany and Austria set fire to the synagogues, broke the shop windows of Jewish shops, killed Jews where they slept, or it was a horrifying pogrom. And it's known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. So that news, although there was no television, was so horrifying it got through what was very much censorship in Britain. And people think there wasn't, and there was. They didn't want all the deeds of the Nazis to be known. Get your heads around that. It's hard to believe, but it's true. It's true. Because I've read, an awful lot, and I've read first-hand testimony from some of the German and Austrian exiles who managed to, the few that got away, and in fact got interned, most of them during the war, in internment camps, if we're talking about my country. I suppose. And they wrote about the experiences. And Kokoschka, wonderful Austrian painter, I'm sure you know about him, wrote some fantastic anti-British government paintings. I mean, perfect. And I say perfect, and I know why you laugh, but because they got to the heart of the matter. They got to the heart of the matter of an artistic, deep artistic revulsion against the fact that Britain was giving Hitler everything he wanted. Now, this is not generally known. Anyway, that's my long-winded answer about Sylvia Pankhurst. Sorry, thank you.
You talked about the power of art, and that made me think of the Stockholm Film Festival. Actually, are together with Save the Children. I don't know if you know.
No, we're having lunch with them tomorrow. It's great.
They have
Thank
this
you.
Initiative of bringing filmmaking to children in refugee camps, so they get to tell their stories through film, which I think is a very, very powerful way.
Very important, yes.
So I wanted to ask you about the power of art and film in these kind of situations. Do you have a comment on that?
So, I guess I can only really speak for this project in terms of us being here and having seen it all together. There's some great filmmaking that's been done to document the situation regarding refugees in various parts of the world. Excellent filmmaking. There's been a lot of very journalistic kind of approaches to it, and it's been wonderful. But I think this, Vanessa wanted to do something that was obviously personal, very personal, which it is, poetic, meditative, but then also with an incredible sense of urgency at the same time. And I say this, I can say this because you're the director, but I think that's your great vision, is what you've been able to create, is something that has all these layers, these elements, that's very, very unusual for a film. Because usually films are either, just kind of purely sort of manifesto type pieces, I'll get out, or they're very beautiful, poetic, or meditative, but rarely combine all these different elements together into one whole. And you manage to do that. So, I think it's showing that art is powerful, and I have to say, the audiences that have seen the film have been very inspired and galvanized to do something as well, to do more. And young people as well, which is wonderful as well, because that's the future, next generation, and seeing young people really inspired and what can I do, who can I get in touch with, these sorts of things. These are wonderful to hear. When we were in Calais in the jungle, filled with young people, young volunteers, I mean, it's very encouraging. People say, young people who don't care. Not true at all. Young people do care. Many young people do care, and they do a lot. So, in fact, they're an inspiration to us. So, yeah.
I would add to what Carl is saying with some examples. You all remember, I'm sure, the night. It's famous, but if you don't remember it, I'm just recalling the fact that there was the night of the burning of the books in Nazi Germany. Well, those books were by writers which included Thomas Mann, of course, and Stefan Zweig, and many other wonderful European writers. Thomas Mann is to this day considered to be one of the great European writers, a German. Doesn't that show the power of books? Then Hitler's Nazi Germany created an exhibition called Degenerate Art. I don't know it in German, but it was called Degenerate Art. And they set it up and included some of the great artists of the time, including the artist I just referred to, Kokoschka. He was quite proud of having been included in it. So I guess that shows us that even paintings are supposed to be dangerous. Bertolt Brecht wrote one of the most extraordinary plays, some of the most extraordinary plays, we could say. Galileo Galilei is one of them, Galilei. The Good Woman of Sichuan is a brilliant play. The Caucasian Chalk Circle is a good play. And he wrote Fear and Misery in the Third Reich, which is a series of scenes. And I've sometimes played the Jewish wife, which is one of the scenes, who's having to pack and get out of Germany because of the Nuremberg law about no intermarriage. No German must marry a Jewess. That's a brilliant scene. So I would guess. And then, of course, there's the power of someone like the Chinese dissident Wei Wei.
And he's, of course, been in the jury for the Stockholm Film Festival, and he's a close friend of the festival.
Well, that's great. Well, I've never met him, I'd love to. But, one of the things he did was to, after Ilan Kurdi, the little bubby, was picked up dead, drowned off the pebbles in Bodrum, Turkey. Newspapers would pick up that picture everywhere, and it would continue to remind them of the children and the men who were dying in the Mediterranean and the Aegean. So I would say yes, but it's a specific way It keeps human beings human. That's what I think art is all about, actually. Keeping human beings human.
One more question, and there is a question over there, the woman in the grey hair. Yes, you.
My question is, what are you going to do, the next step? What will happen to tell the people about this one, about the refugees, about our future and past to the people? Then, what are we going to do? How are we going to fight against the weapon industry? How are we going to fight against the capitalist world? Then capitalist bosses. How are we going to fight against them? To stop the refugees, to stop the war that causes the refugees. And what's your advice? What are you going to do now?
So what is the next step?
I can't give advice about how to stop war.
No, I mean, yes, this is one of them.
I mean,
how are we going to what are we going to do? How we have to fight against the war industry? How are we going to?
Yes, that is something that everyone can do, which is to try and prevent selling of arms. I personally feel, as a British citizen, appalled that Britain sells arms to Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia has led what's called the coalition to flatten the whole of Yemen. Now, I don't get into the political thing of so on and so forth. Of course, I've got my own thoughts. Everybody has. But that's not the point, my thoughts. My thoughts are the arms are being used to destroy civilians and children. There's not practically a hospital left in the whole of Yemen, is there? So I respond by thinking, well, thank God for Médecins Sans Frontières. We must help them. That's how I respond, because I don't know a better way to
So supporting Doctors Without Borders?
Doctors Without Borders in the case of Yemen. If I were younger, I probably might be picketing outside some venue where the arms traders are selling their arms. But I feel I've got different things I have to do. I can't tell everybody what to do. We have to do something. And to help the refugees, to help save the children in their work, and UNHCR, who have a seat in Sweden, and I'm sure there's some other very important organizations, and a lot of help is needed to help the refugees who are here by way of education, by way of support for accommodation, by way of getting job, assisting with relations, etc., etc. I'm not equipped to speak in this, for this, but there is a lot to be done. I've seen in Germany with Carlo, we were in Nuremberg, politically, it's a bit of a disaster, but Bavaria's people are completely different. I think it's one thing I can say is, you don't know necessarily, do you? But I don't know a lot of things either. We saw at first hand the work that many Nuremberg and Bavarian Germans are putting into helping young refugees. And most of them are young men. And like the lady in our film, you saw Carlo did that interview, because she lives near And that lady explains, she says, you know, people wonder, why are there so many young men? And they are much younger than they look, by the way, as well. And she said it's because they have to become refugees. It's their only way to survive, because when exam time comes, when examinations are being held at the schools of the 16-year-olds and the colleges, etc., and the universities, all the different military factions from all sides come round with their lorries and round them up and take them to force them to fight. Now, how many people think of that? I didn't know that until she told that, and she told that because the young boy who's living with her and her daughters, he told them. And I've never read that story in the press, ever. You know, there are many stories that you have to be with the refugees to hear, and when you hear the refugee stories, which is why it's wonderful what you just told us about Save the Children, concentrating on helping the refugees to make these films.
So thank you for... and inspiring our hearts. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having our film. Thank you.